You're listening to the Joel Martin Mastery Podcast, your source of music news, stories, and 2 hour deep dive interviews with bands that have sold over 80 million albums. If you've been enjoying the podcast, please take a moment to subscribe, like, comment, and share. Now let's dive into today's episode. Welcome to the Joel Martin Mastery Podcast. Thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it. We are joined by a very special guest. He's achieved a level of mastery as a member of Riding with Killers, as well as the gold-selling band Taproot. So welcome to the podcast, Taylor Roberts. Taylor, how are you? And is it true that when you're not being a rock star and playing the sold-out crowd, sold-out shows, you're actually saving animals on the side of the road?
Joel, how are you, man? I'm doing great. Just got home. Tired but good. Nice day's work. And I rescued my best friend Meg on the side of the road about 10 years ago. I used to work at the Humane Society in South Mississippi when I was like 16, 17 years old, and I gained a big love for strays and pit mixes, especially because they're very misunderstood. And I was working for a company called True Green at the time, and I was at one of my favorite properties, just this gorgeous, gigantic property up in Purvis, Mississippi, and I see just the most pitiful looking dog come running by the gate, and I was like, oh my God, I have to go see what's up, because it's one of those things I saw at the side of my eye. And I was like, did I just really see that? And so I ran out the front gate, and I just see this dog with no fur, mange, just emaciated. And I went down to, pet her, and she started yiping like I was going to pick the crap out of her. And I was like, oh my God, like this poor baby. And so I ended up luring her over with some crackers, and then I scooped her up, and she kind of yiped a little bit, but once like I just kind of sat there and held her, and she realized she was safe, and I took her home and brought her to the vet, and I called the vet ahead of time, and I was like, look, this dog I'm about to bring in looks absolutely terrible. It wasn't me. I found her on the side of the road. I want to get her better. And then ended up giving her medicated baths twice a day for about a month and a half, and fur started growing back, and she's been by my side, ever since. Man, come here. Come here.
Oh, she's
Come
right
here.
here. We got a cameo.
Come jump up. Can you jump up and sit here? I'll point. It's my baby right here. This is Meg. She's by my side always, but she's the best dog I have ever had in my entire life, and she's been with me through thick and thin, man. So I'm very grateful to have her by my side.
She seems to be appreciative of you giving her a second chance.
Dude, she lives for love, to be loved, and to love, man. Like we've got a cat, and like she cuddles with our cat. Like she's not aggressive, and she's the sweetest dog. And everyone who meets her, they're like, dude, your dog is so well behaved. And it's like the best compliment in the entire world that, other people see how sweet she is. And she's just an absolute angel.
That's amazing. I save rabbits, domesticated rabbits, from being
No
euthanized.
way.
I've adopted a rabbit named Violet. So this big, chubby, furry, free roam rabbit here. And in the last year, I've helped about 12 rabbits from being saved them from being euthanized, and then I help them find their forever homes. And it usually takes about 1 to 5 weeks. So it's pretty sweet. Same thing as you, where we just love these animals, and they're just pure love, and they deserve better than some humans have treated them.
That's amazing. And it's cool that you bring up rabbits. The bass player that I work with a lot in studio and write with, for most of my stuff, James Laskew, he and his wife Jessie, they have a big old rabbit, and we like to hang out with them whenever. And they're actually, well, I guess I can't really say, but I should be able to hang out with their rabbit more for reasons.
Oh, it's all good. We no, we can't share a few things here yet, but we'll break that news when we can. I like to start the interviews by sharing how the guests and I know each other, just showing the importance of networking and building community, fostering relationships. So in our case, we met online, not through the greatest of circumstances. Our mutual friend John Wysocki passed away a few months ago. This is the original drummer for the band Stained, and there was a celebration of life event. It was a fundraising event. Just like we've been talking about, the fundraising event was for the animal shelter in Nashville, so another good cause. But for that event, I had his band Lydia's Castle on for an interview to help promote the event, to sell tickets, to raise awareness. And in your case, you actually played the event, and just through that sphere of everyone, rallying around John and his family and trying to help out, we ended up in touch. So I guess that's how we met. And I guess I'd love for you to speak a little bit about John, about maybe how you met him and what he meant to you.
Sure. And like, yeah, man, I would say it wasn't the greatest of circumstances that we did end up getting to become friends, but I feel like John would actually love that. You know what I mean? Like, even in his death, he was bringing people together. You know what I mean? And I really think that he's probably smiling down on us right now. Like, you know what? Like, this happened because of me, and I got to know John last year on tour with Taproot, Tanya and the rest of the gang, from Lydia's Castle. We did a lot of shows in the Northeast with them. And once we all started really hanging out, it was like, oh God, these are some of our best friends now. And you know, when I realized that we were going to be playing with John, I was like, oh my God, like this is crazy. Because I remember as a 15-year-old, the first time I ever got to see Stained was at the Jackson Crawfish Festival in Jackson, Mississippi. And it was Stained, Papa Roach, Seether, I want to say maybe Buck Cherry as well. And I'll never forget, John came out, and this was right around the time that Chapter 5 had released. And he had this gorgeous orange drum kit, like the shiniest, most polished cymbals you'd ever seen in your life. And I remember when they played Paper Jesus and just watching John that and I was just like and when we finally got to hang out, we started talking more and more. And I walked out to him. I was like, look, this is going to be the one fangirl moment that I have with you. And I told him about that
Let's get it out
story.
of the way right up front.
Exactly. And like, he just he kind of looked at me and he had like just the slightest smirk, you know what I mean? Like wow, you remember that. But like, he was just such a sweetheart, man. And like the fact that you could talk to him so easily, and you could see how much he loved playing and how much he loved being around Tanya and the gang. And he really loved being in Lydia's Castle. He loved the Taproot crew. And it's just every time we were together, like I'd stop what I was doing, he'd stop what he was doing. We'd walk over, hang out, give each other a hug. And we just had a lot of really great conversations about music, about life, and just everything in general, man. And it was supposed to get to a point to where John was going to be filling in for a couple of shows, that Jared wasn't going to be able to make it to. So it was like, oh my God, we're going to get to play on stage together and rock. And there was just all these plans. And because of all the stuff that we were dreaming about, I feel like that kind of helped increase our friendship. And man, whenever I got the news, like sorry, we were going on stage. I want to say it was at Rock Lansing, and that was probably like it's weird bringing that back up and putting myself back in that place, but dude, it just took the wind out of my sails. It's taking it out of my sails right now, just thinking about it. But like that was weird, because it was like we were just at the start of our friendship. You know what I mean? And I was so excited to see him again. I was so excited to get on stage together. And I didn't tell anybody else. And I think I was the first one to hear about that before we all went on stage. It was like literally we were walking on deck, and I believe it was Macy that was like, "Yo, he's gone," and I just like I don't know, man. It made me play a lot harder that night, but it was like, it was in the back of my head the whole time. And I remember when Tanya hit me up and she was like, "Do you want to come down to Nashville and play this thing?" And I was like, "What do you mean? What do you mean?" And she was like, "Dude, you meant a lot to John," and started crying right there on the spot because it's like I got asked to play for the memory of one of my childhood bands. Like, I'm sorry, I'm trying not to get all welled up on this, but it's hard not to because, like, man, what an honor that was to be asked to come play a Stain song for the original drummer. And I got to pick Spleen, which is one of my all-time favorite songs. And
That's from the from Dysfunction, right? The major
yes,
label debut.
yes.
That's
Oh my
a
God.
heavy one, right?
Dude, the first time I heard that song live, oh my God, what a kick in the teeth. Like 15-year-old me, like my jaw hit the floor and
You
I
weren't ready
just
for the rock radiation at 15.
oh no, dude. Like I wasn't and I wasn't super familiar with that at the time either. It was one of those things I came into Stained during Break the Cycle. That's when when I was old enough that my mom was like, "Okay, you can listen to this music," like so it was one of those things that I started discovering them, and then I was like, well, let me go backwards. And then I found it after I saw it live, and I love it when stuff like that happens because I'm like, what song is this? What record is this on? I don't know what this is. And then I got Dysfunction, and that record blew me away, man. And the first time I ever played a song in drop G, such a low tune song, or maybe it's like G sharp or maybe it is drop G. Either way, like it's a fun tune to play, and I just left it all out on that stage, man. I had never met the other musicians that I played that song with, and I think I was the only person that like I drove 7 hours to play one song, but
A lot of
I
the
had
people were from Nashville, right?
oh
The
yeah, most
Nashville
most of them.
musician community.
Most of them are from the surrounding area, but I remember I looked at Macy and I was like, dude, I got to go do this. The fact that I was asked is already one of the coolest things that's ever happened. But like, they asked me, so I got to go. Like if this is for John, I got to be there. And man, what a great event that was. My guitar tech and his wife just actually got here right as I got home, and I was like, hey guys, ran up, showered, and everything, but really got to hang out with Jim and Katie, and I got to hang out with Jared Weeks from Saving Abel, meet his wife, and their drummer Dave. Like so that whole thing really, you know, because like I already knew these people kind of, but like we really got to hang out that night. We really got to know each other, and I got to see a lot of my friends from Lydia's Castle, a lot of friends from the road that I hadn't seen, got to hang out with my boy Jerome from Breaking Benjamin, their TM. Like we got to go have dinner, have espresso martinis together. Like it created just, one of the most beautiful evenings that I've had in a very long time. And like I know that he's so happy about that because, I'm just one story, from that entire night. And I mean, dude, there was like 400 people there. The place was packed wall to wall, all-star lineup of these musicians. And, it was, I know that like I'm just one of many amazing stories that came out of that night, all to celebrate the life of John, because he meant so much to all of us. Like when I was an angry young man, Stained was there. John's drumming was there to help me through. So that was a very, very special night, and getting to know him was really special just all around.
We had a similar journey into discovering Stained, where I was aware of the album Dysfunction, but it was a little too heavy for how young I was at the time. And it was when right here, when Break the Cycle came out, that the 1-2 punch of Outside, and then shortly after it, It's Been a While. Those hooked me, and I always say that Break the Cycle was the first album I truly loved. Before that, so I was 16 when it came out, and before that album, it's like I would hear my sister who's older playing Nirvana and Rage Against the Machine and Our Lady Peace, and it would pique my interest, but it wasn't my music. And
Right.
and then like you mentioned, I was a young, angry teenager, and Break the Cycle spoke to me like it was my music and my album. And what's also a funny coincidence is I've seen Stained live twice, and both times we're on that Chapter 5 tour.
Oh, that's awesome. That's so great. Yeah, man, they slammed that night at the Jackson Crawfish Festival, and I was blown away, man. Blown away.
So, we our listeners, they tune in and they're saying, "Man, this is the guy from Riding with Killers. This is the guy from Taproot." So they see you as, in their eyes, this final product, this successful musician. But you have a long story, you have a journey of how you got to where we are today. So we're going to do a full 2-hour deep dive. We're going to cover your life, your career, your discography, but I'd like to start all the way back at the beginning. Is there an earliest musical memory that you can think of, where this love for music came from?
Um, yeah, and it's gonna be kind of funny, I think, because people probably won't expect it, but there's two main bands or acts, I should say. One, Elton John. My mom wore out Captain Fantastic and the Brown Dirt Cowboy, which doesn't really have any of his singles. There's not really a radio single on that record, but God, what an incredible, incredible record. And the song that stands out the most for me was Meal Ticket. And I just remember every time she would put it on, I'd start bobbing my head. I'd want to sing along, and like listening to it now as an adult, like the guitar lines from Davy Johnstone, like they're honestly so metal, but like that record from start to finish was beautiful. And I just remembered how I'd always be like, put on Elton John. Can you put on this record? And then when I really started figuring out that I was into music even further was when my mom started listening to more pop, and she was listening to 1071 The Monkey down in Gulfport, Mississippi. And every time Backstreet Boys would come on, boy, I was singing my ass off, dude. Like, I love Backstreet Boys. I don't care what anybody says. They're awesome. And I just would always sing along. And then I would get to a point, and this is where my ADHD comes into play. But if anyone else was singing and they weren't singing it right, I'd be like, that's not the right note. Nope, you got to sing it right. You got to do this the right way. And I would just always get to the point of where I was trying to match, tonally, vocally, melodically what I was hearing on the radio. And Elton John and Backstreet Boys really got me into it. And then from there I started playing alto saxophone at age 7, I want to say. And I started doing really well with that. And I mean, like, that's not exactly a quiet instrument, but I got to the point of where I was spending 4 5 hours with it every night after school, to the point of where I was getting really good. And I started, and I went to like a Catholic elementary in high school, but like it got to a point of where I was being asked to play at church, and like I would be the only one, because we had a small ish, I don't even want to call it a band, because it was like me and 6 other kids. But we would get to a point of where they're like, all right, well, Taylor's going to play Amazing Grace on the saxophone, and it's just going to be him. And I would recite I'd play the whole thing. and I was really enjoying it. Like I learned how to read music, which I have since forgotten how to do that, which I never actually learned on guitar. I was like, you mean I got to
It
relearn how
left
to
as
do
quickly
this?
as it came in.
Well, honestly, it was me being lazy. I was like, you mean I got to relearn like how to sight read, but like with a guitar? Like, no thanks. I'll just go to tabs. But fast forward to age 10, and that record behind you, Infest. Um, that was the first time I was starting to get into new metal, and I heard Between Angels and Insects hanging out with my buddy Caleb McBride and his family, and that opening riff, man, it was like, like a bullseye to my eardrum, and I was like, wait, how do I make that sound? And then I started begging for a guitar around age 10. And then one Christmas, I got $120 Lotus Stratocaster knockoff guitar. And that was that, man. I was like, screw saxophone, screw everything else, guitar. I'm here. This is what I want.
And do you still play saxophone now, or is that long gone?
No, I mean, I'm sure if I sat down with it, like I could play. But I mean, I forgot how to sight read. It would take me a minute, but like and I don't want to say I'm like, oh, I'm this savant or whatever, but if I can spend time with an instrument nowadays, like I'll start playing it within a week or two.
So you mentioned that it was this album here for those that are watching Papa Roach Infest that
Yep.
inspired you to pick up a guitar and play. But once you were actually playing, which guitarists really influenced you back then? You looked at them and you thought like, wow, that is the pinnacle of guitar playing if I can actually apply myself to this instrument.
Man, because like it was a gradual, you know, steady climb, But I mean, I want to say like Jerry Horton, Brad Delson from Linkin Park, Jim Root and Mick Thompson from Slipknot, Head and Monkey from Korn, Darren from System, Greg from Mudvayne. I mean, like those would be the guys that really like made me pay attention to my instrument and start caring about songwriting. And at the time I thought it was maybe Mike DeWolf, but as I'm figuring out, it was more actually Steven Richards, because I mean Taproot was another band that like when I heard this, those melodies and those guitar lines, I was like, oh my God, how like I got to start writing like this. And I'd say it's pretty similar, still to this day. But I mean, those core group of guys, watching their music videos, watching live videos of them whenever they would come on, because I got lucky enough to catch the tail end of MTV when they were still showing music videos and live concerts and stuff on TRL. And anytime those guys would come on, I was just glued to the TV, and I was like, oh my God, I want to headbang like that. I want to move like that. I want to play as intensely as that. And, none of these guys were really like super shredders at the time. I mean, and as you know now, like Jim Root and Mick Thompson are some of the best guitar players on the planet. But they weren't really writing in that vein just yet. It was more just angry, heavy, massive riffage, you know. But those guys were just so highly influential, to me as a kid, really starting out. And then as I've gotten older, our Lord and Savior JC, Jerry Cantrell, that, oh my God, man, like that, like, and I'm it's newer Alice in Chains for sure, but like Check My Brain, dude, do you know how badass you have to be to bend one note and make it that cool? And then of course, like, dude, his solos are just legendary. And he's definitely one of my top guys. And then Davy Johnstone was another one from Elton John, man. Like, and going back to Captain Fantastic, like that man soloing, especially on Meal Ticket, like the vibrato and the lines that he did, like it just made me want to play better.
You mentioned Mudvayne. You just watched them perform side stage recently, right?
Oh, dude, I was so my buddy Sean is teching, or I guess the tour is over now, but he was teching for All That Remains, started helping out with Megadeth and Mudvayne on there. I mean, once you get a big community like that, like everyone kind of starts helping everybody. And Sean and I have played shows together with my band Riding with Killers, and he introduced me to my producer Jacob Herman from Sweden. And so we've known each other for years and years in the music scene. And he's like, "Hey, bro, we're in Michigan. We're it's not Detroit, it's Clarkston, but it's basically Detroit. Essentially, it's like 40 minutes north of, or 35 minutes north of where I'm at currently." And he gave me an invite to come hang out backstage, and I got to watch the entire show side stage, and I was an emotional wreck, dude. Like, it's so funny. Macy kept looking over. She was like, "Are you okay?" And like, I'm just bawling my eyes out, crying, because like, dude, like, again, going back to me being an angry young man, I grew up without my dad. My bio dad was never in the photo, in the picture, and the one time I did meet him, he was a huge piece of shit. Fuck you, Glenn. Um,
Shout out
and
to Glenn.
and then on top of that, I've had probably 6 or 7 reconstructive surgeries on my left eye. And obviously, when I was younger and in the midst of all of those, like, it was way more obvious. I had to wear eye patches over my glasses to try to strengthen my left eye. And of course, little kids are assholes, especially little kids at private Catholic schools. It's like intensified at that point because you got, lawyers' kids, doctors' kids, mom and dad's done bots it all kind of a thing. And my mom was working like 3 jobs just to make sure I could go get a private school education, so it's like I wasn't part of that echelon of people on top. So like I was just ruthlessly made fun of um, as a kid. And the first time I ever saw Mudvayne was the Dig video on MTV, and it blew my mind, man. Like the crazy makeup, the heavy, angry, intense music. And it was like Mudvayne was one of those bands that just grabbed me as a kid and was like, "You're not weird. You're not a freak. You're not a loser. We got you, kid. You belong with us." And they gave me a sense of purpose and helped me find my way. And so just watching all these songs, like, it brought me back to being that preteen, that teenager that was just getting railed on by the upperclassmen and all the preppy kids, and getting rejected left and right and blah 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 blah. And dude, it was an emotional night, man, but it was so good, dude. Like, oh my God, what a great show. We were on Ryan's side, and that guy's not a human being, bro. He's an alien. Like, as far as I'm concerned, he is one of the top bass players living on the planet right now. The things that he does with a bass guitar are just phenomenal. Like, I couldn't stop staring at him, and he's like pure muscle on top of it. So you're just looking at this basically god of a human being just slamming on bass. And then Chad has gotten back in ridiculous, like, I never thought I would see like ripped Chad Gray. And whenever they came back out a year ago, man, he looked, unhealthy. And I mean that with the most love and respect that I can put towards him. Because, everybody coming out of COVID, Vinnie Paul had died, Hell Yeah was done. Like, I'm sure that took such an incredible mental toll on him. And I remember reading back in the day, he wasn't really excited to get Mudvayne back. And I'm sure that had a part to play. But dude, like, seeing him take control back of his life, because I went through a similar situation, dude. I used to weigh 250 pounds at 5'8", and I lost 95 pounds. I'm at 155 now. And so, like, to see him do the same thing, and then his voice was amazing. It was crisp, it was beautiful, it was intense. And seeing my boy Marcus Rafferty playing guitar at the helm, because Greg had to go home for a family emergency. So I've known Marcus since the Hell Yeah days. My old band used to play with them a lot. So I was overcome with emotion seeing Marcus step at the helm and like just fucking slam it and kill it. Um,
And that's not an easy band to jump into.
no, dude. Oh my God, dude, it's math metal. Man, like, oh my, dude, it like every single person in that band is doing the most that they can throughout the entire song. And then I was emotional seeing Matt again because I met Matt at Taste of Madison last year, and I'll never forget it, man. Like I'm just hanging out, and all of a sudden I hear this voice going, "Well, I've toured with Taproot, but I haven't met you before." And I turn around, and it's Matt from Mudvayne, and he comes up and he gives me a hug, and I'm like, what? Like it was just it was the coolest thing ever. And then he sits and talks to me for like a half hour. Like it wasn't like he was like, all right, is this kid done talking to me yet? No, he was like fully engaged in a real conversation. And you know, when you get to meet your heroes like that and they give a fuck and they actually are in a real conversation with you and they're not trying to walk away. It was, I cried. I mean, I'm an emotional dude. I don't care. But I cried after that because it's like, dude, like, I can't believe that I just had a real conversation with Matt from Mudvayne and he was the nicest dude ever. And just seeing all of those guys there and reliving those songs, it brought me back to being that kid again. And it was just such a great show. And then Megadeth comes on after that, and we got, you know, like they run a tight ship, and you know we are respectful people. So Macy and I made sure we exited backstage to not get Sean in trouble. You know, and we got out, but like they gave us like the best seats. Like we weren't front row. We were maybe like 10-15 rows back, but we were in the center so we could see everything. We got the best spread of, you know, the sound system, and the mix was beautiful. And it was like, you know, master guitar class 101 with Dave Mustaine and Timu. And just I was in awe that whole night. Like that night was amazing.
Just a
So
guitar
Sean,
clinic
oh
all day.
dude, totally, man. Like, and you know, as I was watching them and I looked at Macy and I was like, you know, honestly, with all due respect, because I love both bands, but I was like, fuck Metallica, man. Like, dude, Dave Mustaine's up here, like, writing the shreddiest, most thrash metal riffs, and he's singing the whole time. And it's like so badass. And it's like, because, you know, there was the whole thing with, you know, Mustaine and Megadeth throughout the years, but it's like, bro, you won. You totally won, dude. You're one of the big four. You're one of the best guitar players on the planet. And just watching him play guitar, and then I was like, dude, I'm on the same artist roster as Dave Mustaine, like jaw meat floor. Like wow. It was just so good, dude. And watching him and Timu go at it, like I still rewatch the videos from that night. Just like because I was zooming in on his hands and his fingers, just like, what's he doing here? And how's he playing this? Like it was awesome. So awesome.
The Dave Mustaine story is so insane. To be a member of Metallica, which goes on to be the biggest metal band of all time, selling over 100 million albums. He gets kicked out and he wants revenge. So he starts a metal band called Megadeth that he wants to be faster, heavier, everything. He wants to outdo his former band. And the end result, he creates a band that goes on to be the second best-selling metal band of all time. So Megadeth has sold, I believe, 40 to 50 million albums. So, like, it's just insane. How do you do that? You know, most people don't find success as a musician, period. This guy was in the number one and number two metal bands of all time.
That should tell you how incredible Dave must. And on top of it, dude beat cancer. Like, dude, he almost lost like the use of his hand. I remember reading something where he fell asleep on it on the tour bus, and he had nerve damage. And like, dude, that guy has been through everything. You know, he's been through every high and low, and then to see him healthy and you know still killing it at this day and age, you know, like it's a sight to behold, man. Like I feel so honored to like I said to be on the same guitar roster as that man, and then to just get to watch him play was such an honor, man. Like he's one of the greats, man. Like no matter what way you slice it, like throw album sales out the door, like dude, he's a worldwide phenomenon, you know. And it's just it's a true testament that if you want it bad enough, you can make it happen, and he did.
You mentioned that with Mudvayne, it was the song Dig off of their album LD50 that hooked you. It took me a little bit longer. For me, it was the second or third single, Death Blooms, that hooked me.
Ooh,
And you're talking
yeah.
about math metal. Man, Death Blooms is like 5 or 6 minutes of like time changes and tempo changes, and it's the song sounds like it's this, but then there's more melody over here, and you were talking about the bass player. The bass in that song
Oh,
is just bananas.
dude, and the music video for that song, when I finally, dude, that video is scary, bro. Like that is a dark, scary, just like demented style video. And I don't know, man. Like their artistic direction, dude. Like they're just so good. But no, for real, man. Like when I started exploring that record, I was like, you can do this. You can make music like this. Like it blew my mind as a kid, and it still blows my mind. Like as an adult, like going back through that record and listening through everything, like it holds up, man. Stands the test of time.
You're like, this isn't the Backstreet Boys or Elton John. What is this?
No, not at all, man. Like, and you know, I still I jam every genre, man. But like, once I discovered metal and new metal and hard rock, like I was like, this is what I want to create. This is what I want to do. This is where I belong.
So we have some fan questions that have been sent into the podcast.
Wow,
I have
really?
yes, and I have the first one here, and this is kind of funny. This is a t-shirt company that sent in this question, and this is like
Whoa.
smart to get free advertising on a podcast, essentially. But this is from Hudsty Band Shirts, and their question is,
Oh
if you could
man.
have any vintage band shirt in the world, what would it be?
Ah, dude, I love them so much. They're wonderful. Um I got to meet them at Rock Lansing, and oof, man, that's a tough one because I have some of the ones that I always wanted that I got from them. It was is an old school Mudvayne where they're the superheroes, and an old school Nine Inch Nails shirt, and like she was very hesitant to sell me any of those. She was like, I don't know, but like we talked for a long time, and she eventually was like, okay, you're worthy to take these. Um,
If you could choose one more that you don't have, what do you think off the top of your head? A vintage
Dude,
t-shirt.
honestly, I would say, and it's really cool because Macy bought me another version of it for Christmas, and it was a long sleeve version. But there was an old red Lincoln Park shirt, and it just had Lincoln Park and white lettering. Um, but there was a gas mask logo on it, and I remember I wore that shirt out to death until it was just rags, and then I haven't been able to find it since. So if I could find that shirt again, probably that one. It's from like I would say 2000 2001, and I know that's not, I mean, I guess technically by today's standards 20 years is considered vintage, but I would say that'd probably be the one.
And you mentioned Linkin Park. What are your thoughts on the reemergence of Linkin Park with the new singer, new band members, new singles, new music videos, new tour, new album coming out next month? I was a massive Linkin Park fan. I'm enjoying the music that I'm hearing. I would love to see them live. I think she sounds great. I think she's doing a great job. Obviously, you're never trying to replace Chester. That's not what it is. But then you hear, some negative stuff about her past, so it's hard to know what's true and what you should be judging things on. But just speaking about the music, man, anytime you can hear some new Linkin Park music, it's been 7 years, so it feels good to hear some stuff that sounds like vintage Linkin Park. What do you think?
Honestly, man, at first, because I watched the live stream first, and I was like, oh God. But then I was like, wait a minute. I chewed on it for the night, and I woke up and I was like, dude, she didn't just play in front of a live audience. She played in front of the entire world. Oh my God. Oh my God, dude. Like
The pressure.
I would have fucked up some stuff too. Like, was it perfect? No, but was it good? Yes. And I was like, man, I would love to hear her after she's gotten seasoned with the guys. Um, I really like the Emptiness Machine, man. Like, again, going back to me being an emotional dude, like when I heard that, like I broke down because I was like, oh my God, this sounds like Lincoln Park, but it's a new era. I don't think they're trying to replace Chester. That was never the thing. You're never going to replace somebody that died, especially a voice and a powerhouse like him. But I think she's there to step in and continue Lincoln Park and bring about a new chapter. And like, I think they're really gonna nail it with this new record. I haven't dove into Heavy Lies the Crown just yet. I haven't had the time, unfortunately, because like when I listen to stuff like that, I want to give it my undivided attention. And when I dove into the Emptiness Machine, I probably listened to that song 30 times in a row. Like not that's not even an exaggeration throughout the entire day and then throughout the next week like that was all I really listened to because I was picking it apart. I was analyzing it and I was like, okay, this is great. This is awesome. Lyrically, melodically, musically, mix wise, across the board, this is amazing. Because Linkin Park was another one of those bands, man. Like they saved me. They made me pursue music because Linkin Park was the first band that I ever got to choose as a concert. It was always like, oh, I'm tagging along with my mom, doing whatever. But it was at a point of where I was old enough where I was like, hey, this is what I want to go to. And she actually liked Linkin Park. It was like, it wasn't too heavy for her. There wasn't parental advisory lyrics on Hybrid Theory. And she was like, okay, we can do this. But of course, Mudvayne was on that tour too. So that was the first time I got to see those guys circling back. But when we were waiting in line, I got to answer a question from the LPU, Lincoln Park Underground, and I got it right. So they gave me and my friends backstage passes. So I got to go meet them in 2003 on Project Revolution tour at the UNO Lakefront. Shook all their hands, and while we're waiting in line to meet him, Joe Hahn comes up and he sees my little disposable camera, grabs it from me, takes a picture of me and my friends, starts being a goofball, runs around, takes pictures of all the band members, and just honestly the coolest experience I've ever had as a kid meeting a band and got to talk to Chester and shake that sweet angel's hand and um, after that they let us into the venue early and me and my friends just bolted and ran and beat the crowd and we
Right
got
to the
on the
bar.
barricade, dude, barricade front row center. And this was right as they were on Meteora, so they had some more money behind them. They had started building, the stages and the awesome sets. And I'm just like staring up, like Chester's right here, Brad's right here, Mike's right here, Phoenix, Rob, Johan, like all like I'm just watching this whole band and my jaw's on the floor and I'm like, all right, well, I know what I want to do with my life. I want to perform music for a living. I got to figure out how to do this. And so, they're the band that really set me over the edge to want to be a rock star, a rock and roll guitar player, and pursue music as something that I could pay my bills with one day and just do, and you know, to have them back after 7 years, like it's a breath of fresh air. It's relief. It's release, and that's why when I heard the song, it hit me so emotionally and so powerfully. And then, like diving into Emily's past, man, like I know she put out a statement, and I'll say that that dude Cedric from the Mars Volta that called her out, like Was I'm pretty sure that photo was of those two together at a Scientology event. So it's like there's a little bit of hypocrisy there, I feel. But like there was one photo of her, and from what I understand, and I could be wrong, please correct me if I am wrong. I'm always open to being told facts, but like she hasn't been active in the church for 10 years now, from what I understand. And, the Danny Masterson thing, she, that one hurt too, because that 70s show, I used to watch that every day after high school. I felt like I hung out in the circle with the whole group. And then, like, I felt disgusting when I found out that all that was true. And I would love to believe that because they were friends, because she grew up. From what I understand, she grew up like in, and this might be the wrong terminology, but like in that nepotism situation where her parents had that leg up, and from what I understand, she might have grown up in the church, so I can maybe understand a little bit of being involved in it. But then as you get older, you break away from that. Um, but like the Danny Masterson thing, like I would like to believe that she was hopeful that her friend at the time was innocent, but then figuring out that he wasn't, she withdrew herself. She said she attended one preliminary hearing and then she went away. And I would like to think that that was, a huge blow to her, like, oh my God, my friend's a piece of shit. My friend did this. Oh my God, he's not my friend, like if you were in that situation, or if I were in that situation, I would want to believe that someone I had known for X amount of years was, not guilty of something like that. I would want to be there for them, especially if they only showed you one side of themselves like that. Um, so I feel like it's not just this black and white scenario. People find themselves in shitty situations, and it seems like she tried to hopefully remove herself from all of that. And I would like to believe that she's a good person. I don't think Mike Shinoda's an idiot. I don't think the rest of the guys are stupid. I don't think they would have chosen somebody that supports a rapist, or is fully involved in a cult like community, or
You
not,
you you figure
not cult like a cult like
you
Scientology.
figure Linkin Park did their research over the last 7 years before announcing
Yeah,
something as colossally like $1 billion brand like Linkin Park. You don't just throw back out there.
yes, completely. I would like to think that they were calculated, and they thought about it and they did their research. Because again, Mike Shinoda's not an idiot, dude. He is such a powerhouse musician, producer, artist, all of it, man. Like those guys are so insanely talented, all of them, and I would like to think that if they feel that this is the right decision, that that Emily's a good soul, and a good person. I don't know any of them personally. I'm just going based off of my relationship with the music and love of the music for the last, God, 22 years. 23 years, what, 2000, 2001, so 24 years, something
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that, you know?
Hybrid Theory's 2000. So
Yeah, dude, 24 years, man. I've been listening to that band, and I bought all their rockumentary DVDs, Frat Party at the Pancake Festival live in Texas. I have all their albums. Like, I bought a Black Cherry Paul Reed Smith Custom 24 because of Brad Delson. You know what I'm saying? I tailored a lot of my style and musical gear around that band at one point in my life, and like they mean a lot to me. So like I said, I'd like to think that they were very, calculated in their decision.
you want to give her the benefit of the doubt, and
Yes.
cancel culture is just wild. You want to, give her a chance. Hopefully the truth about what she's done or what she believes, or everything will come to light, and hopefully it's all in the past, and give her a chance, and hopefully the new album's great. And I love the second single, Heavy is the Crown. It's like super vintage Linkin Park sounding. So I have faith that the new album's going to be great. And we were talking about hybrid theory. I remember being 14 on the bus going to grade 9. I had my CD Walkman, and someone goes, "Here, check this out." And they give me Hybrid Theory, and I put it in, and the first song's Paper Cuts. And just the guitar riff mixed with the drums that sound programmed, like those two things together, yeah, those two things together sounded so fresh, back in 2000. And I recently did a podcast episode talking about the reemergence of Linkin Park and everything they announced during that live stream. And Hybrid Theory is the best-selling debut album of the 21st century, period. That one album sold 32 million copies worldwide. And previous to that, so the best-selling debut album of the 20th century was Guns N' Roses, Appetite for Destruction. I believe that was around 89. So it's like Guns N' Roses
Yeah,
owned the last 100 years, and Linkin Park owns from 2000 until now. Nobody's had a better selling debut. So
that's awesome. And I believe it, man. Like every single song on that record could have gone to radio and done just as well. Every single song, and even the hidden track, or like the bonus tracks, like My December and High Voltage and all of that. Like all of those songs are perfect. They're perfect.
So we were talking about amazing musicians back when we were talking about Mudvayne and Megadeth. I have some kind words sent in here from an amazing metal musician. This is from Kyle Mayer. So the drummer for September Morning, former touring drummer for Gold Selling Band 10 Years. I was a big 10 Years fan back in the day. Here's what Kyle says. I didn't get to speak too much with Taylor on tour, but the whole Taproot band is a class act with a good vibe. I would play with them again anytime. So that's from Kyle, short and sweet.
Kyle, I appreciate it, man. I really like the September Morning crew. Like, they were really cool. And that was around the time that I was first into Taproot. We were playing some of our first shows, and like I was just I had so much going on in my head at that point, and I hate that we didn't get to talk more, but I was just like, oh my God, I got to play right. I got to do, like I was feeling the pressure for the very first time. But God, what a great band, and what a cool like vibe that they have. And I always really enjoy getting to watch them. And they were just they were really good people. And like I said, the brief interactions that I had with Kyle and the rest of the guys and gal,
The guys
and
and
down,
gal.
yeah, and I mean, and their merch girl too. Like that whole camp was just really awesome. And I hope we get to do some more shows with them as well. Like that was a lot of fun.
So you're in two amazing bands, Riding with Killers and Taproot. Let's dive into Riding with Killers now, and then we'll dive into Taproot afterwards. We're going kind of chronologically through your life, your career, your discography. So Riding with Killers, the band formed in 2018. How did you meet the other members, and where did the idea of starting a band with those members come from?
So, basically, the idea was born in 2018. I had just quit my band from the Gulf Coast, Wildfire, which is previously Catharsis, and I was like, all right, I gotta leave the Gulf Coast. I gotta get out of here. I gotta figure this out. And I was at a point to where I was like, dude, I don't ever want to deal with another lead singer again. So I'm just gonna figure it out. I'm gonna do it this time. Because at first I was like, who am I gonna find to sing? And then I was like, nope, not going through that again. Because clearly I did not have the best of exits. Like for me to quit a band that I started when I was 14, 15 in my parents' garage, like that took a lot. It hurt. It was like the craziest divorce ever because a band is essentially a marriage. Um, and so I was like, all right, well, I'm going to sing. I don't know how to sing. I don't know how to write lyrics. I don't know how to do this, but I know how to write songs. It's like I could start with a guitar riff, and I'm like, all right, I want this drum feel, blah blah blah. So I went to my old producer Matt LaPlante in Madison, Wisconsin, and we demoed out 3 songs, and we had programmed bass, programmed drums, and they were starting to sound cool. And then I was like, wait, Dave Coughlin is not far away. He's in Detroit, and I love that guy. He's like my older brother, and I hit him up and I was like, dude, like we have these songs, check them out. And I got to know Dave in 2013 when Catharsis went on the winter tour with Taproot, and which was like essentially their last full length tour. And I got to know the entire band so well, and they became some of my best friends, clearly. And I was like, well, dude, like I'm near you. Would you want to put some real drums on this? Because I always loved Dave's drumming, and even though he was jamming, he was playing parts already written, like he always put his flair. And I would always watch Dave play drums on tour. And then, we would play Call of Duty, every single night after we got off to, like, we still play Call of Duty,
That's a necessity for bands.
Oh my God, dude. Like, we've been playing Call of Duty for like 11 years now.
It's the bands. It's because of the bands that it's the best-selling video game every year when they release one.
Totally. It's the best way to stay in touch with friends that you make on the road. And like, dude, Dave and I destroy. Like, I always tell him, like, we should join a Call of Duty league. I bet we can make some stupid money.
That's where the
'Cause, like,
real money is. Yeah.
dude, like every time we play a game, when we're on a team, me and him are top 2 every single time, and 9 times out of 10 our team wins. So we got a thing there. So we just had this amazing friendship, and we had this connection. And he was like, well, dude, come up to Detroit. And he was like, I want you to meet my real good buddy Tim Krukowski. He used to play bass for Sponge. And then we all got in a room together, and dude, it was magic. Absolute magic. Like Dave put the drums on, and then when Tim got to it, like, dude, our bass lines were basically following the guitar, and Tim was like, nope, fuck that. And he just started like on Get In, for example. Like, dude, it's almost like it's basically a Metallica riff. Oh God, For Whom the Bells Toll, essentially that do 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 do. But like he took it a step further, and like he just put all of this awesome flair and style, on top of these songs. And then we had the Get In EP, and I was like, oh shit, we should start writing more songs from there. And then we ended up doing like DNA, Don't Fade Away. I'm trying to think of all the other songs that we did together with Tim, and World Apart. And we did like 4 or 5 more songs with him, and we were just having such a Self Destruct, another one. And Tim started helping me with lyrics and vocal and melody writing. Like that guy is a powerhouse writer. He's a great musician, and he really helped me grow up a lot. And then it got to a point of where Tim, instead of more playing, wanted to be more on the producing side. And that's where James Laskew came into the picture, and he started writing with me, like Hostility. Like James and I wrote that song together, and Floating, and the 9 Inch Nails cover, and Do This on My Own. So like the first record is a mix of James and Tim Krukowski together. And I met James when Wildfire opened, and it was just one date that we opened this tour package, but it was Nothing More, Red Sun Rising, and Wilson. And James was originally from the band Wilson, and we just had such a great time, with a lot of that crew. And when I moved up to Detroit, that was right as Wilson was breaking up. I sent James a message, and I was like, yo, dude, like, we played the show together and we hung out. And he was like, honestly, man, I was drinking a lot back at that point. I feel like I remember you, but like it was just really funny how that all came about. But then James and I end up getting in a room together and we're like, dude, we make really cool sounds together. We had like and then we just connected instantly, and to the point of where, he and I wrote the second Writing with Killers record with Jacob, and James did 100% of that record with me. And he's my favorite bass player, man. Like he really is. Like the sounds that man makes with his hands and the sounds that he and I make together, like it's just it fits. It's perfect, so just really from getting out there and networking and being cool with the people that I get to meet on the road was how I landed with all these people.
I I'm a little late to the party, but I just discovered Nothing More that you mentioned you shared the bill with them. I
Yep.
just discovered the band Nothing More recently. They have a big hit single, If It Doesn't Hurt.
Yep.
And to me, that's like an undeniable rock anthem.
Oh yeah.
And then I went back through the discography and there's great songs like Jenny and then something about war. And they're a band that I'm just sinking my teeth into now. So it's cool that you brought them up. Uh, with the podcast, we have lots of loyal listeners that listen to every episode, regardless of who the guest is. So sometimes
Yeah.
it's your fans and the bands that you're in, it's their fans. Sometimes it's just people that check out every episode. So for those new listeners that aren't familiar with Riding with Killers, how would you describe the band's sound? And I know that's like the hardest question to ask for a
It
band.
is. It really is. I would say it's a blend of 90s new metal and with a modern twist. I try to draw from all of my influences, whether it's a one little piece here or one little piece there, but that's the best way that I know how to describe it is, guitar driven, rock riffs and new metal vocal styles with heavy rock drums, but like this new record, it's going to be completely different from what I've put out there already. Like, we've got odd time signatures, we've got more metal, tendencies. Like this second record, like I feel like we wrote an old school Slipknot tune. Like I don't sing one lick on this opening song on the new record, and it's just like I said, it feels like an old school Slipknot song. But I try to draw from all the guys that made me want to do this in the first place.
This episode has been brought to you by the Women in the Music Industry podcast. It's hosted by music producer Rob Wells, who has worked with global superstars like Justin Bieber, Ariana Grande, and Selena Gomez. Through his 1 hour interviews, he shines a spotlight on the remarkable women who are breaking barriers and making their mark in the music industry. Some of his notable guests include Morgan Lander of the multi-million selling metal band Kitty, and Pam Shane, who co-wrote Genie in a Bottle for Christina Aguilera. If you're a fan of the Joel Martin Mastery podcast, you'll love the Women in the Music Industry podcast, which is available on all platforms. So I think the band name Riding with Killers is awesome. And I think it's congruent with the sound, the aggressive sound of the music, at least from the EP and from the album from last year. I haven't heard the new album. Maybe this is breaking news. The new album's coming out. We can talk about that. Is there a story behind that band name? Because it feels like there should be, because it's awesome.
Yes. So there is. So a long time ago, do you know the Netflix movie about Motley Crue called The Dirt?
Apparently it's amazing, but I haven't seen it.
It's really good. So they shot that movie in New Orleans, Louisiana, and that's like 45 minutes from my hometown. And I applied to be in it, an extra in it. Like I didn't have any speaking roles or anything, but I got accepted. And while we were shooting, um, I ended up meeting this guy named Shane, and we connected, we hit it off. We knew a lot of the same musicians in the local area. He's a drummer, and he's just a good dude. He had a great vibe about him. And we exchanged numbers. We had a great time hanging out. And then like a week later, he hits me up and he's like, "Hey man, I know you're in this transition." This is like right when I was about to quit my band, and I was looking at moving. I was leaving my job, and he was like, "Hey, I know you said you're in this spot. I really enjoyed hanging out with you." He's like, "Do you want to come work with me? I'll pay you 2 grand for the week, and we're gonna wrap houseboats." And I was like, 2 grand for a week? Like, I'm fucking there, like, because I had never made money like that at that point in my life. And I was like, I don't know what wrap houseboats means, but like, I'll do whatever. And it's starting to seem like this great thing. And he's like, "Yo, dude, we're gonna fly there. I got your hotel, your food, your travel. You're not gonna have to pay for anything." I'm like, "This sounds great." Well, as we start getting closer to it, he's like, "Hey, man, we're not gonna fly anymore. We're gonna drive a company vehicle." And I was like, "Oh, okay, that's cool." "Hey man, we're not going to take a company vehicle. I got to go. We're going to take my personal vehicle." And I was like, "All right." "Hey man, we're not going to take my personal vehicle. We got to go to Hattiesburg, pick up my parents' vehicle at this place, and then we're going to." And so like the story kept changing, and I was like, "Okay, this is starting to feel weird. Like, what's going on here?" And so I ended up calling a mutual friend of ours named Matthew, and I was like, "Bro, like, is Shane cool, or am I gonna end up scattered in like 6 trash bags on the highway to Atlanta?" And Matt starts laughing his ass off. And he's like, "Bro, like Shane is good people." He's like, "If he says this is what it's gonna be, this is what it's gonna be." And on the drive up there, he starts joking about it. And he was like, "Yeah, Matt told me that you called and checked up on me, and we were gonna play a prank on you and make you feel like you were part of this like drug ring that you couldn't get out of, and all this other stuff." And but I was afraid you might have a gun on you, but whatever. And I reach in my backpack and I pulled out a 9 mil, and I was like, "Well, I do." And he was like, "Holy shit!" And I was like, "Bro, we're going to Atlanta." And this was before I was, privy to Atlanta and all this other stuff. But like, I was traveling with someone that I didn't know, and it's one of those things. I'd rather need it and not have it than to have it and not, or I'd rather have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. And he was like, "Oh my fucking god!" And I was like, "Bro, like I'm not crazy. This is just for my personal protection. Like I'm not like a gun nut or anything crazy like that." But that was one of those scenarios. Like I just felt uneasy, and so we literally laughed our asses off about this for like 4 hours after, like, because it's like a 7 hour drive, and then first 3 hours we're talking and blah blah blah. Well, it turned out to be one of the coolest weeks of my life. We went out to Lake Lanier, Georgia, and Margaritaville had just bought a plot of land up there. And with that plot of land, they bought 2 houseboats. Well, they were converting this, not in this, almost like a casino bar houseboat kind of a thing, so people could go party on the lake. And we wrapped, and it was the first time that anyone had ever done this too, which was so cool. And we worked our asses off for a week wrapping these houseboats on with graphic vinyl. And like I had an X-Acto knife and I was cutting out all the windows. And we were I learned a lot that week. And met this dude named Greg and his wife, because right next to these docks were these other just like gigantic houseboats. I'm talking like millionaires lived on the lake. It was so cool. And we were getting to hang out with these people, after every day of work. Went to a Braves game, went to the Georgia Aquarium, ate some of the best food I've ever eaten. And on the way home, he's like, "Man, you thought I was gonna kill your ass, huh?" And we're laughing about my paranoia. And and as we're driving home, we see a Jeep on fire, right? And then as we drive past it, the fucker blows up. And we were like, "Oh my God, did you see that?" And so like we've got all these emotions running wild, and I'm reflecting back on my paranoia, but then how cool of a week it was, and riding with killers just popped up into my head, and I was like, huh, that's kind of cool. That sounds like a fun band name. I can acronym that to RWK Rock. You know, I could I could have fun with merchandise. I could incorporate classic cars, muscle cars. I could incorporate movie slasher villains, or if I wanted to go taboo, I could do serial killers, or maybe one day I could look at doing a graphic novel about riding with killers and make it about this band, or whatever have you. Like it made my gears turn. I was like, it doesn't have this, like prolific, universal meaning, but it also at the same time does, because it represents me finding someone who's now one of my best friends, a brother, and it represents one of the coolest weeks of my life. And I started searching the internet from front to back, and I was like, wow, there's never been another band called Riding with Killers that's ever existed. And as you know, finding a band name that no one else has ever had before is like next to impossible. And I started thinking back on my old band names like Catharsis. Dude, no one could spell that name correctly ever. And this is radio stations. These are promoters. These are tour flyers that, we would pull up to a show, out of state, and our name would be misspelled on the marquee. It would be pronounced on the radio. And then when we did Wildfire, that still somehow got messed up. And then we found out there was like um, a teenager group of girls from Tennessee called Wildfire. And I was like, well, shit, and we had to compete with that because they had like 50,000 followers on Facebook at the time, and yada yada. And then
It's hard to compete with a group of pretty a girl group, you know.
dude, totally, and they were country on top of it, and I'm sure they had mom and dad's money behind them, because they had some money from somewhere behind them. So
That's
it
the
was like
winning
we were
formula right there. Country,
completely,
all girls, money backing them.
dude, and it was like lose lose every which way. And then when I thought of writing with killers, I was like, oh, I like this. This is something I can have fun with. I can expand later down the line, and then when I do have money, I can actually start enacting some of these, ideas that I have. And then whenever I got hooked up with Andy Glass from We Came as Romans when I moved up here, I was looking for a band logo. Like I wanted an acronym of RWK, and I was like, look, I want this to be my Slipknot S. And then he came up with that RWK logo, and I was like, dude, that looks iconic. That's something that people will remember. It's a badge. And it's been slow moving, but it's all starting to come to fruition. And we're starting to build that name. And it just went from there. And then once I had the name, I put that out to the world, and then I was off to the races.
So you guys released the full-length album Full Circle last year, 2023. I've listened to the album in its entirety twice with a good pair of studio headphones, and
Thank you.
here are my quick notes. Album is awesome. Heavy, melodic, great riffs, harmonies, diversity, attitude, badass. So that's my unofficial on-the-spot review. And the single Don't Fade Away is currently on radio. I'm seeing it show up on different charts. Number one, how good does it feel to have some radio play? Because it's hard to get that if you're not signed to a major label. And number two, do you remember the first time hearing your song on radio? I'm thinking maybe you had some radio play with other bands, but maybe this is the first time. I'm not sure.
Yeah, so to be getting radio airplay now, being an independent, is really amazing. I've been working with Tim Binder from New Ocean Media, and he's one of those guys, man. Like he knows that I'm not rich, because like I self-finance this band, and I don't have rich parents. I don't have rich friends throwing money at me. I have to work my ass off painting houses, because I own a painting business, but I also don't charge astronomical fees. So I'm a modestly priced, independent contractor, and every bit of my work and the money that I make goes towards, this band. And he sees, he heard it and he knows that like he believes, you know what I mean? He sees something there. But again, he knows that I'm not rich, so he basically has made it semi affordable for me. It's still not cheap, but he believes in what I'm doing. So to have a believer in my corner that wants to see me succeed, it's been amazing. I just got our charts today. I think we hit number 75 on I don't know if it's the Billboard Top 100 or whatever like that. And I think we're 94 on the secondary market, which I mean that's not amazing, but at the same time, I threw a pebble at radio, like a pebble, like the smallest amount of money that you can throw, and to see it making some moves like that, it's cool, man. Because I know that if I had tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands to throw at radio like these labels and these bigger bands do, maybe we'd be sitting a little bit differently. But like to have such a shoestring budget and be seeing stations around the country picking us up, like it lets me know that I've got something worthwhile here. It lets me know I'm on the right track and that I am making the right move. So it's honestly the coolest thing in the world. Like hearing your song on the radio will never get old to me. It's not something that I'll ever get jaded to. Because dude, this is what I've been building towards my entire life. And now that it's starting to happen, you know, for real, like it's amazing. And the first time I ever heard my music on the radios with my band Catharsis way back in the day. And I got to give a quick shout out to Scott Fox and Kenny Vest, Riley Knight, and the rest of the crew at 97.9 CPR Rocks in Gulfport, Mississippi. They played my band song from Catharsis called Closer. And I'll just never forget hearing Scott Fox saying, "Local group Catharsis, here's Closer," and then bam, da, 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 da. Like it was just like it's real, it was that was like goosebumps, chills, hair standing up on your arms, and to know that, like, 10, or I'd say it's about 12, 13 years later, same effect. It's still just as cool. But like I feel like it's even more meaningful now because these are my songs. I mean, those were my songs back in the day, but I wasn't singing, and to know that a song that I wrote about my grandmother's struggle with dementia is on the radio right now, and it's something that is deeply personable or personal to me about, one of my favorite women on the face of the planet. Like it's incredible.
So you have a few special guests on the album. One of them is Paul McCoy from the band 12 Stones. So this is on the song World Apart. So man, I was a 12 Stones fan. I bought their debut album, and we were
Oh
talking
yeah.
about Wind Up Records a few days ago and how amazing their track record was. But for our listeners that maybe aren't familiar with 12 Stones or Paul McCoy, you guys know Paul McCoy's voice
Yes, you
because
do.
Evanescence, their debut album Fallen, the first single Bring Me to Life that everybody knows. Bring Me to Life, there's Amy Lee's amazing angelic voice, and then there's a guy that's kind of doing a Linkin Park type
Wake
rap
me
thing.
up.
Yeah. Wake me up. That guy is Paul McCoy. And that debut album, we're talking about the biggest debut albums of all time. That debut album from Evanescence sold 17 million copies. And Paul McCoy was the voice that launched that band and launched that single. Um, Incredible. When I read the name, I'm like, that's not the 12 Stones, Paul McCoy. You're like, oh yeah, that's him. So
Yeah, it is.
you have a story there that it's not just like, oh, you reached out and got this guy. It's you have a relationship with this guy.
Oh yeah, dude. Paul is one of my best friends. He is an absolute sweetheart. And I mean, 12 Stones is from Mandeville, Louisiana, like right down the road from my house. If instead of going down to New Orleans on I-10, you keep going, west, you'll hit Mandeville, and their old drummer was a DJ at 97.9, DJ Fantastic. Um, And like I got to go see those guys a bunch when I was a early teenager. When they released Potter's Field, like they signed my SG Voodoo that I still have, um, and I got to meet Paul, and like I was just always kind of around Paul, and then once I got to know. The guys at 97.9, and I started playing, CPR Fest and more CPR related shows, just by default, Paul and I just ended up together. And he's another one of those guys that we just connected and is like, I love you, you love me, we're friends. Okay, cool. And every time we were around each other, it was nothing but laughs and smiles and good hangs and good times. And I mean, dude, anybody that knows Paul will tell you the same thing. He's just such a sweetheart. He's a good guy. He's a good dude. He's a great music. Like he's one of the best out there. He really is. He deserves more success than he has. I would say I feel like he's a very underrated musician, a very underrated singer because like the dude's a badass. He is, and once we got a relationship going, and this is a fun fact that not a lot of people know. I was auditioning for 12 Stones at one point,
Wow.
and then I was supposed to be a guitar player for him, but then they just never really got a band back together and never really started doing much after that. But like I remember going over to Paul's house with my old bass player and we ran through songs and we were talking about logistics and stuff like that. And then it didn't happen, but 12 Stones didn't really happen after that either. Um, and then, that kind of got he and I thinking about playing music together and writing together. And then I had this song World Apart, I had the verses recorded, we had the music, but I was like, dude, what am I going to do about this chorus? I don't know what to do. And so I called Paul and I was like, yo, dude, we've been talking about doing something together for a long time. Do you want to write a chorus for this song? And I sent it to him and he was like, fuck yeah. And then 3 weeks
That's
later,
a good response, eh?
he went to, I want to say Skid Mills. And he sent me everything and he was like, do you want me to change anything? And I heard it and I was like, nope, perfect. And as soon as I heard it, like it was everything that I was hoping that song would turn into because it's kind of an angry song and I was so mad when I was writing that and I was so pissed that I couldn't think straight when I was trying to write the chorus and I told him where my head was at, what it was about, and he just shot it out like nothing, man. Like
It
it
ain't
was
no
like it was
thing.
seamless. Yeah. Oh, dude. I mean, he's an absolute pro, man. I mean, he's like you said, he's part of one of the I would argue the biggest Evanescence song. Like the 12 Stone records were amazing. They charted, like they were all around the world. They were on MTV and all the things, and they were doing it. Like so to get to work with him was honestly a dream come true, especially because we had such a good friendship leading up to that, and it was something that we both wanted to see happen. So, um, getting Paul on a track was just amazing. And I'm really hopeful that at some point here in the near future, we get to perform that live together. And I think it's coming. I think that one's coming.
So I have one quick point about the album, and then we'll dive into Taproot.
Sure.
So there's a Nine Inch Nails cover on this album. So it's their
Oh,
song
yeah.
Every Day is Exactly the Same, which is one of my favorite Nine Inch Nails songs. And the lyrics to that song are incredible. So basically, he starts by saying, I believe I can see the future. And you think, like, oh, does this guy have a superpower? Like, what is this? And it turns out that his life is so boring and he lives the same day every day.
Uh,
So it's like he can see the future, but it's because tomorrow is going to be the same as today. Like it's just incredible songwriting. So I guess how did you choose that song specifically? And before you answer that, the best show that I've ever seen, and I go to concerts that's like all I do is go to concerts. And I went to from Ottawa to Montreal, I went to see There was Death from Above 1979 opening for Queens of the Stone Age, which is
Ooh,
that's who I went to see, who was
woo!
who was opening for Nine Inch Nails. So I went as a Queens of the Stone Age fan. I was familiar with Nine Inch Nails, but I wasn't a fan. And they converted someone that wasn't there to see them. It was by far the best show I have ever seen in my entire life. And during that show, in that moment, I understood Nine Inch Nails. Like I got it. They hooked me, and I've seen them since then. And the two times I've seen Nine Inch Nails are the two best shows I've ever seen in my life. So I thought I would put that out there before you answer how you chose that song for this album.
Well, let me start by saying fuck you, because that sounds like the greatest show of all time. Like, I love Queens of the Stone Age, and oh my God, what a great show. Oh, I'm so envious. I'm green with envy right now. Like, that's incredible, man. Like, and I take it back, not really fuck you, but like,
Yeah.
seriously, what a
But
great
still,
show,
fuck
man.
you. Yeah, yeah.
That's amazing.
And look, I don't want
Incredible.
to make it worse, but that show when I saw them, it was Queens of the Stone Age and Nine Inch Nails in Montreal. A few late years later, I go to the Made in America Festival in Philly, and the two headliners, Queens of the Stone Age and Nine Inch Nails. So I saw the same bill twice with like a, I don't know, 7 year gap. So completely different shows.
Oh my God,
So I'm
dude, that's
sorry. I'm
amazing.
sorry if you're
No,
envious.
well, and you know what's funny? Aside from the recorded cover, we cover "No One Knows" live. Like
Nice.
that's one of my favorite songs to cover at our show. But and we'll do a little bit of show and tell after I tell you why I chose that song. But dude, that song it's my favorite Nine Inch Nails song aside from "Copy of a." But like when I first heard that song, it was at a point in my life where I felt like I was doing the same thing. You know, like I felt like I was on repeat every single day. I felt like my life had no meaning. I felt like I was just spinning my wheels and going nowhere and just continually doing the same things. And I just related so hard to that song because I felt like years of my life was that song on repeat. And it's my favorite Nine Inch Nails song, and if I'm gonna try to attempt to remake a song or record it, like I want to have a personal, deep, real connection to it. And I mean, dude, I've experienced every array of emotion listening to that song from a teenager to now, and it's just such a powerful and incredible song. And to get to live inside of his head and recreate all the synths and electronic stuff as an actual rock band. Like, it was so much fun, man. Like that, I had such a good time, like with Matt and Dave and James. You know, recreating that tune. It was it you know it just seemed like a no-brainer because I feel like not everybody would pick that song either. You know, like I don't want to just pick songs to cover that everyone else and their mom is gonna, try to recreate. And I hadn't heard anybody try that one yet. And I was like, okay, let's do this one. And the end result was honestly fantastic. It was I'm really proud of everybody's work on that song, and I think we did a really great job. And for the show and tell portion, real fast, I'm gonna make sure I don't like destroy my guitars.
I mean,
Um,
how do you even find the right guitar case? You got 77 guitar cases.
so this one, and I actually recorded the entire second Riding with Killers record on this guitar, but this is a Gibson. This is a Trent Reznor prototype Gibson that never went to production. And what happened is Trent was playing a similar guitar. He was talking with Gibson, and he basically, didn't reach a deal, but Gibson preemptively made like 50 of these hollow bodies. And when the Memphis factory shut down and they didn't reach the deal, these were given to employees as a commemorative gift for all their hard work. And I found a collector that just didn't want this anymore, and is when I saw it online, and it was advertised for a much lower price whenever I saw it, but then I got put in touch with the guy, and I was like, and it was like I had finished my first real big paint job. Like it was the most money I'd ever made on a paint gig, and I was like, I'm buying myself a guitar. And then I bought this thing, I got it, I played it. It felt like it was made for my hands. And like I said, I made the entire second Riding with Killers record on this guitar. And like, dude, we were plucking strings on this thing. Like we didn't we used this thing almost like a piano. Like we didn't really use this like a guitar, and we had a lot of fun creating weird, wacky sounds with this thing. So that's my show and tell is my Trent Reznor prototype Gibson hollow body. So
That's
boom.
amazing. And you played that guitar on the Nine Inch Nails cover?
No, 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 no.
You got that after?
I got this one after.
Got it. I was gonna say that'd be so meta to play a Nine Inch Nails guitar on a Nine Inch
Dude,
Nails song.
right though? Right? Uh,
So I'm gonna ask you about your move from Mississippi to Detroit, but before that, I have some kind words sent in from a fellow Mississippian. So this is from Dave Murata, the drummer for the
Dave.
platinum-selling band Saving Abel. Here's what Dave has to say. He says, "A fellow Mississippian who also shares the same passion and drive as I do. Taylor has a great ear for tone and a wonderful personality to go along with it. I first met Taylor at Taste of Madison behind the stage and immediately felt comfortable talking to him. Soon after, I'd see him take the stage with Taproot, which I was already stoked for. Hope to see you down the road. Keep doing it. It's infectious and humbling." And he does the rock star hand emoji that I'm having trouble doing. So that's from Dave Murata. Saving Abel.
Dave, I love you, bro. And I think us being in the same room together will happen a lot sooner than you think. So, I feel like Dave and I are just starting our journey together. Incredible drummer, such a sweetheart. And I mean, the fact that he's up with Jared Weeks, like that's just good company right there, man. That's good people all around. They're just wonderful, man. So, Dave, thank you so much, dude. I can't wait to see you again, brother.
So how do you make the decision to move from Mississippi to Detroit, and how does that lead you to Taproot, which we'll dive into now?
So I basically when I quit my band and I was like, all right, where am I figuring out to go? Because I was looking at a couple different places. I could have gone to Vegas, I could have gone to LA, I could have gone to Nashville. But then in 2017, I had been invited up to Detroit to come hang out with Dave Coughlin, which, as you know, is the drummer for the first Riding with Killers record. And when I hung out with him and his wife, Melissa, which I'm actually painting their house right now. That's where I got back from late today. When they invited me up, that was the coolest weekend I think I had ever had. I stayed at their house, and at the time they were off of Cherry Hill, and I mean their house now is fucking amazing, but like that house, like there was like 6 or 7 bedrooms. I got to meet all their friends. We had like the craziest party, and Taproot was doing, a Taproot weekend. And it was a chance for me to come hang out with the boys again and see everybody. And it was my first time going to the machine shop. And when I walked into that venue, it was like I walked into a fairy tale or a storybook, that I had been reading my entire life because I knew about the machine shop, even being, from Mississippi. And, the feeling that I got when I walked in there and I met Kevin and Maggie and Nick and and Butt Crack and John and just everybody up there. I like it felt like I had been there before. You know what I mean? Like it was like this weird sense of deja vu, and I was like, dude, this feels like home. And being in Dave and Melissa's home in Michigan, I was like, I feel comfortable here. I feel normal. I feel like a human. And that made a lasting impression. And then when I realized that I was going to be, you know, leaving my hometown, I called Dave and I was like, yo, bro, I'm gonna come to Detroit and we're gonna write a record. And he was like, all right, kid, whatever. And then I eventually showed up. I made a couple pit stops along the way. I made a random stop in Ohio that we don't need to talk about.
We
And
never
then
talk about going to Ohio.
fuck no. Ugh. And then I ended up in Fort Wayne, Indiana for about a year. I was working for Sweetwater. So I was working my way up there. And then I ended up getting a job offer to paint for a commercial painting company. And I saw an opportunity to jump to Detroit, and I was like, all right, I'm here. I'm doing it. And then I got here, and then we just started writing like crazy and making it happen. So I always had Detroit kind of in the back of my head. And then when I saw a pathway to get there, I mean, I had to take a couple zigzags and turns, but I would say Dave and Melissa were the main reason, that I wanted to be here, and just how amazing they were to me and how kind they were. And then meeting their friend Kevin Mack, who I like, we went to Till Lindemann together the other week, and we go to shows together, and he comes to hang out at my house now, and I met some of the greatest people I had ever met at their parties, and I felt like I should be here, like they just made that good of an impression.
So I discovered Taproot back in 2002 with their massive hit single Poem. That's probably where most people started with them. So
Really?
it's been a great experience for me to go through the entire discography to, I was familiar with a couple of their biggest albums, but not, there's 7 albums or more. I wasn't familiar with all of them. So it was awesome to really see the entire discography from where they started. There's some insanely heavy stuff, and then there's some more polished stuff, and then there's heavy again. There's a whole adventure to go on listening to their stuff. How did the opportunity present itself for you to actually become a member when you started as a fan?
So, I mean, I would say the roots were started back in 2013. We played a club date with them in Mobile, Alabama at the Soul Kitchen, and I hung out with Phil for basically the whole night. And I was just like, oh my God, I'm hanging out with Phil from Taproot. This is great. But like another one of those, like, dude, we vibed, we connected. And then fast forward a few months later, we're doing CPR Fest, and we got to open that. Taproot's there. I walk up to Phil, and I'm like, and I tap him on the shoulder. I was like, hey man, do you remember me by chance? And he's like, yeah, Taylor from Catharsis. And my jaw went to the floor, through the decking, and hit the ground below, because I'm like, what do you mean Phil from Taproot remembers not only my name, but my stupid, weird, hard to pronounce band name? And I was just blown away by how good his memory, because he doesn't have to remember anybody if he doesn't want to. I mean, he's Phil from Taproot, and got to see Steve again and Mike. And I believe Nick, or no, Dave was playing for them. So that was the first time I actually met Dave. And just through talking with them, and I was like, dude, if you guys ever go out on the road, like you need support, like we'd love to come hang out with you, man. And he's like, yeah, I'll put you in touch with my manager. And I was like, what? And so I started talking to Eric Baker, and next thing you know, Eric picks up Catharsis, and we're on the 2013 winter tour. And I had a fucking ball with those. Honestly, I hung out with Taproot more than I hung out with my own band. But like we just all connected, and I know people have their reserves, and I guess you could say negative thoughts and stories about Mike, but like he was always nice to me. I never had a problem with the guy. Every single one of them were amazing to me. And then that's when I got to know Steve a little better and figured out that he's just this weird anomaly of a human being, but I really enjoyed being around him, and I could make him laugh every now and again, back in the day. And, it got to a point of where after that tour, I stayed in touch, like Steve wouldn't really. Steve's kind of an introvert, man. Like he doesn't really talk to a lot of people. I'd say he's more active now than he has been in the last, 10, 15 years or so. But like every now and again, I would get a Merry Christmas or glad you're doing well, man, from Steve. But like Phil and I, you know, um, we would have 2 hour long phone calls to the point of where he would call me, I would call him, and we would talk about life. We would talk about food. We would talk about health, nutrition, ideologies, philosophies. Like we had really amazing in-depth conversations. And, while we were still on that tour, like Phil started teaching me Brazilian jiu-jitsu. And like I could tell that he took an interest in me as a person and he became a mentor like figure to me. And then of course, Dave and I um played Call of Duty, stayed in touch, would goof around. And when he and Mel would fly down, to go hang out at the casinos in my hometown, because we've got MGM and all that, I would always make sure that if Dave and Mel came to town, I would go meet them either at the airport or the casino. We would have dinner. I would bring them weed, and we would always hang out. And, Mike and I would have phone calls. I helped him sell a couple of guitars because I'm a gear whore. I buy and sell and flip all the time. I worked at music stores, so I maintained a good relationship with them after that tour. And another fun fact, I was actually supposed to join Taproot 10 years ago. Like and all the love to Dave Lizio, but Dave was here. Dave was up in this area. I was still in Mississippi, so it was going to be a logistical nightmare for me to be the guitar player of Taproot. But Phil had brought it up way back in the day, and they had been talking about me, but it didn't happen. So I was like, oh man, like that's kind of cool that they wanted me in the band, but it didn't happen. So whatever. And then fast forward when I moved to Detroit, and Dave and I start creating what would become Full Circle. Dave starts sending all the songs to Phil and Steve, and he was like, dude, listen to what this kid's doing. He's still active. And they started hearing all the songs, and they asked Dave, they're like, oh shit, this is really good. Where's he at? And he was like, he's in Detroit, bro. He moved up here. And you know, so Phil and I started talking a little more and more. And then randomly I get a message from Steve on Instagram, and he was like, yo, dude, we're looking at maybe playing a show. Would you want to come jam? And I texted Dave and I was like, bro, Steve just mentioned me playing a show with them. And he's like, dude, that's special. He was like, Steve doesn't talk to anybody. He was like, that's really cool. He was like, keep it to yourself. Don't say anything. I was like, all right, oh my God, that's amazing. And so, I start getting that, feeling in my chest, and like it's that takeoff feeling, and then one day, and I'd started my painting business, and one
Can
of the
can you
first,
share the name of your painting business? Because it's
yes,
aptly titled.
rock and roll painting, baby. Let's go.
Yeah,
Rock
beauty.
and roll painting. And I service all of Metro Detroit. And honestly, I go anywhere. If the money's right, I'll be there. And so the first realtor and property manager and his wife that like decided to come meet me on a property, bought me lunch, and sat down and broke bread with me, Matt and Sam Stillman. I still do work for them to this day. I absolutely love those two. They've got a new, she's a year old now, but that's still new. They've got a baby girl named Isla. They are the epitome of what a hardworking, beautiful family can look like. Like I love those people so much. I cannot stress that enough. And they had invited Macy and I to go eat with them, and we're sitting around the table, and I get a call from Phil, and I was like, oh, hold on one second. And because like anytime Phil will call me, I'd like, oh my God, I can't wait to talk to Phil. And he's like, hey dude, we got Blue Ridge Rock Festival. Do you want to play guitar for Taproot? We want you. And I just like tears start streaming down my face because I've been waiting on this for 10 years.
And it's a big festival, right?
Right. Not anymore.
It was.
Fuck you, Jonathan Sly. You. Um, but so immediately everyone at the dinner table is like, did someone die? And I was like, everything's wonderful, like his tears are streaming down my face, and I get off the phone and they're like, what's up, man? What was that? And I was like, I just got asked to join one of my childhood bands that made me give a fuck about guitar. And it was the coolest thing in the world. Like I remember talking to Phil after that. He's like, I know this isn't as cool as Metallica hiring, Rob Trujillo. And I was like, but it is, bro. Like, I was like, I have such a connection to you guys and your music and the fact that I know you as people and we became friends before this ever happened. I was like, this is as cool as being asked, when Metallica asked, right? And I didn't get $1 million check, but like, I don't give a fuck, dude. I love Taproot. I love the music, and I'm here, dude. Whatever you want to do, I'm here. And it's been the coolest ride ever, ever.
The amount of epic guitar riffs across the Taproot discography is absolutely staggering. How much of a challenge was it to learn that intense of a guitar discography? And how do you tackle that? Do you start by saying these are the, I don't know, 12 most played songs live for the band and start there so at least I'm ready to play live and then start adding on more songs? How do you tackle 7+ albums of the wildest guitar riffs I've ever heard?
Um, Honestly, man, like when I started learning these songs, it was easy because I am so entrenched in Taproot. I feel like I've got Taproot in my veins, man. Like they were one of the 6, 7 bands that was always and still is in constant rotation. And hey BB. When I started learning them, it was like I had been playing them my entire life. Like the riffs felt so familiar, they felt comfortable. And I mean, I didn't get all the songs 100% right off the bat because I didn't get stems. I didn't have isolated guitar tracks. Those are long gone. Um, and because I'm sure the label owns them or whatever the hell. But they felt so familiar, and they gave me about 25 songs to dive into. And then any questions I had, I would call Phil, I would call Steve. And then when we finally got in a room together, like they were watching me and they're like, oh, hold on, move your hand right there. And like, just ever so slight adjustments, but like basically what I would start doing, I would figure out, you know, where these songs were at. I would get a base idea of them, and then I would start watching old school live videos. Where's Mike's hands at? Where's Steve hands at? And then I would start going based off of that, and then I would just get with Steve, and since he wrote the songs and he did all the guitar parts, like he was able to help me figure out little missing pieces. And then once I figured, like, Steve is a creature of habit to a degree. Like, he's got a couple chord shapes that once I figured those out, I was like, oh, I know what to
It's
do
like someone
now.
gave you the little legend at like the bottom of a map and you're like, "Oh, okay, yeah, now I
Yep,
got it."
100%, man. And like, once started recognizing Steve's patterns, that allowed me to dive in so much easier. And like Steve is very concise with, um, helping me understand certain parts. So, you know, I would say like it wasn't really that difficult, man, because I love these songs. I love this band. And again, when I started playing and learning them, it felt like I had been doing it forever. And what's so cool about because I had to buy baritones, and since I'm an artist with Gibson, they don't make baritones anymore. So I had to source them and find them from all over. And the main one that I play generally, which now I'm kind of replacing that with the Gibson Victory that Trent, my rep, just sent me, which thank you, Trent. I love that guitar so much.
Shout out to
Um,
Trent.
but what was so cool about the white baritone SG that I first got, in the middle of the serial number is 313, and that's Detroit area code.
That's pretty cool. Seems
I
like
mean,
it's
even
meant
though
to be.
they're Ann Arbor, it's still like I moved to Detroit to pursue music. I landed in Taproot because I came to Detroit, and for that first guitar to have 313 in the serial number, like that's not a coincidence. It can't be. It can't be.
That
You
reminds
know?
me. That reminds me of 8 Mile, where he says something like "in the 313."
Yes,
That's in
sir.
his rap battles. He drops the
Eminem country,
313.
baby. And that's the other thing too, man. Like now that I'm painting Dave's house, like starting to paint Rockstar homes, I'm looking at painting Kyle from Sponge's house next. It's like, dude, where's Eminem coming to play? Like,
You
call me when
need
you're
you
ready,
need
dog.
the Motown Boys, the White Stripes,
Yes.
Eminem,
I
Kid
need Jack
Rock.
White's house. Like, come
Yeah.
on.
I think
Come
is
on.
Chance the Rapper there? Or no, that's Chicago maybe.
No, no,
He's
no. Yeah, I love Chance the
Detroit or
Rapper,
Chicago.
though. I
Yeah.
think he's Chicago, but don't quote me on that. I
Yeah.
don't believe Chance is from here. Then I could do Grizz's house, like EDM. Like I love EDM
Yeah.
too. So like I'm my business is aptly named, so I provide rock star service to the rock stars.
What Taproot song is either it was the most challenging on guitar to learn or is the most challenging to play live, where when you're doing that one live you got to focus or you might hit some wrong notes or lose where you are in maybe a different time signature or something. What comes to mind just like that?
Um, I would say and it's not that the song is like I don't lose my place in that song, but my hands are doing a chord to where I'm stretching these two fingers and then I have to switch back and forth. But like to hold that chord out, do 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 ba-da-na, da-na. But like I'm holding my hand out like this on a baritone scale length for about 30-40 seconds at a time. And it like I don't have big hands. I'm a small dude. I'm only 5'8", you know what I mean? And Steve has like these long spider-like fingers. So writing those riffs for him was kind of easy. So like playing that, like there's times where I've been playing it live where I'm like, oh my God, like hold it. Like we're almost there. We're
It
almost
hurts us.
dude, completely. I would say I is probably the one. And then maybe mirrors reflection a little bit because like that da 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 like especially in the middle part because like it gets so intense that it's almost like you can get lost in that song like just in the moment because you're headbanging, you're trying to go crazy, and like even when you're listening to that song it's just it keeps building and building and building and it almost feels like it's like destroy overstimulating to a degree. I would say those two are the two that like can mess with me just because I'll get lost in the moment. I'll be rocking out and then like my hands start getting tired from stretching across 5 frets and doing it on a 26 and a half scale length guitar, because I never played baritones for a majority of my career, and then getting into Taproot, like I had to buy specific instruments. But now that I've got the Gibson Victory, that's the first time in a long time Gibson has done a 25 and a half inch scale length, which their normal scale length is 24/7/5. So you start slapping big strings and low tunings on that, it starts feeling flubby. But now that you have that extra point 0.7 inches on there, now I can actually play those songs on a semi-regular scale length. Like that's normal Fender scale length. So that's kind of what I've been doing to showcase that guitar because most of Taproot stuff is in A standard, not drop tuning. So I'm the first guy with the Gibson Victory. I think I'm the first Gibson artist that's touring with that guitar, which is such a huge deal and honor. So again, thank you to Gibson and to Trent for believing in me and sending me a guitar to be seen with. And I know I'm the first guy to put that guitar in such a low tuning as A standard. So it's really cool to be, pushing the envelope with a very non-traditional Gibson shape and scale length with a non-traditional tuning. So now that I've got that guitar, it's a little easier to play some of these songs. And since I'm talking about it, um, I gotta show it to you. But this is the all new Gibson Victory. As you can tell, that's not a normal shape for them. Ebony fretboard, 24 frets, 25 and a half inch scale length, and we've got the cool Explorer headstock on it. So this is basically my main guitar for Taproot now. And it's going to be, my main B flat guitar for writing with Killers as well. So my goal is to put this guitar out to the world as much as I can, help Gibson, bring about a new era with this guitar. So but what I was telling you about that but like holding that and then switching back and forth on an even longer scale length. So it's more like I'm doing this, for that scale, that baritone. So having it on this just gives my hands a little bit of a relief. But yeah, I is one that messes with me for sure.
So
Not because
for
it's complicated, but the stretching.
So for those that were just listening and not watching, that little thing of silence was Taylor showing where how stretched out his fingers were. And it's cool that you mentioned Mirror's Reflection for one of the most difficult songs because I have some notes. So I have a note that says the Gift album is shockingly heavy. And then my note is
Totally.
Mirror's Reflection has tempo and time signature changes difficult to play? Question mark. So it's like the one song where I'm like, this sounds like it's not easy to play at all. So that's cool.
Yeah, like I said, it's that overstimulating part. Oh, baby, I know. I'll take you out in a minute. We're almost done.
So
Hold on one
I have a,
second.
yeah, let him out or let her out. And then I have a question for you here. So hopefully I'm not saying this name wrong, but the question is from Spivvy. Hopefully it's not
Spivey.
Spivey. Okay. Of course, there's two ways to say it and I say it wrong. So Spivey's question is, if you could play guitar with any other guitar player, who would it be and why? And then if you needed a bodyguard, which Spivey would it be? And then he puts a cool dude shades emoji and then a question face emoji.
Definitely current Spivey because that guy is a total fucking unit, and I love him to death, man. So this is how cool this dude is. He's obviously a Taproot fan, but he and I got to form a cool relationship, and he knows that I'm a big World War II buff. Like that's one of my favorite periods of history. But he just did a ruck, an 80-mile ruck for the 80th anniversary of the D-Day landings. He actually brought me soil back from Normandy, from Omaha Beach, and I thought that was a really thoughtful, incredible gift. He and I just went to Breaking Benjamin and Stain together. He's definitely one of my favorite people that I've met. Just a really great guy. So current Spivey as my bodyguard. And I'd love to play guitar with Jerry Cantrell. I love his writing. I love his singing. His soloing is so soulful and precise and well thought out. I feel like I could learn a lot from him. You know, I really do.
So you know how you were a little jealous of my Queens of the Stone Age and Nine Inch Nails double header show?
Yes.
Well, I'm feeling the same towards you because, as you can see here, Stained and Breaking Benjamin behind me, two of my all-time favorite bands, and that tour that you just saw, where it's those two, and then Chris Daughtry is on some of the
Yes.
dates. No Canadian dates, so that kind of broke my
No.
heart. So I'm happy that you were able to see it. Stained did a tour here. They hit Toronto with Godsmack, which is a cool double bill as well.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, when I saw the Breaking Benjamin, Stained, and I really like Daughtry as well. Yeah, it kind of broke my heart. There was no Canadian date, so that's
Well,
cool that
we
you
we
got to see
just
them.
played with them too at Louder Than Life. You know, same stage as Stain. Breaking Benjamin was right next to us, and I actually got to tune my guitar on Mike Mushock's rig. Right as we were about to go on stage, his tech let me use their box, and I got to look at all of his gear and check his guitars out. So, really cool that I'm starting to get to share the stage with a lot of these bands that I heavily listened to growing up and still do, you know.
Mike Mushock is such an underrated guitarist as well.
He's
So
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 good.
unique with the harmonics. Like he's always throwing in harmonics in those heavy riffs. So he's an awesome guitarist. So we've already gone 2 hours, and I still have a ton of questions. Are you okay if we go a little bit longer? I'll handpick just a few Taproot questions. We have a few fan questions, a few quotes sent in, and then we wrap up. Is that okay?
Totally. And then I'll eat me some dinner, and then Macy should be getting off work soon, and I can hang out with her. We've been back and forth. Like I've been working daytimes this week, and she works at the Fillmore in downtown Detroit. So I get home, she's not here. I wake up early, leave. So, yeah, totally fine.
Okay, perfect. So, first, I have some kind words sent in here, and this is from someone you've worked with closely. So, this is James Franklin Martin. Great last name.
Dude, he's in my living room.
Oh, that's too funny. So, I infiltrated the camp right down to your living room here. So, James, who's a tech and stage manager with POD, Saving Abel, Taproot, Riding with Killers, James says, "Love me some Taylor Roberts, one of the best to tech for." So that's from James. Again, short and sweet.
Dude, I love James. He's such a badass too, man. Like he continues to show me the ropes. Like, great example when we were doing Louder Than Life. I didn't know what egress was, and he explained because we were about to leave, and they're like, "You can't leave the venue." And then James was like, "Follow me." He basically got us out the venue, and dude, he makes sure that I don't have to think about anything. I can do my job to the best of my ability when I know that he is behind me, and he's just been one of the best friends that I've made in this industry, with especially within the last year, because we really got to know each other at Taste of Madison. And he's another one of those guys. He believes in what's happening with Riding with Killers, and to have him and his wife Katie come up and want to be around us and want to help us. He's awesome, man. I don't know anyone that would ever have a bad word to say about that dude, because he brings the best vibes. He works his ass off, and he knows what he's doing, man. He's a true professional.
So you've mentioned Jerry Cantrell and Allison Chains a few times during the interview. I wanted to ask this because Taproot has such a unique sound, and there's a lot of different elements that lead to the overall band sound, which is super, super unique. And one of the things is you know Steve's voice that is unique between the way he sings and screams and melodic and heavy and all these things. So my question, and I've always wanted to know this, is how much influence is there from Alice in Chains in the Taproot sound? Because Alice in Chains has this super unique harmonies that they do. They do very different harmonies than most people. It's not your typical like pop harmonies. And I hear those Alice in Chains unique harmonies in a lot of the choices that Taproot has made for their harmonies. So is there a connection in the Taproot sound and the Alice in Chains sound, or am I hearing something that's not there?
Oh, you're on track, man. I mean, dude, Lane was supposed to guest vocal on a Taproot tune
Wow.
way back in the day. Like if you listen to Spacey, which is on the Besides record that they put out, like Lane was supposed to be on that song. But I mean, dude, we're all huge Alice in Chains fans, and I mean, vocally, hell yeah, dude. There's definitely influence from that band riddled all throughout the discography. So you're on track with that, man, for sure.
I'm crazy, but not about that one point. So we have some more kind words sent in. This is from Chris Laurie, the guitarist for the gold-selling band Tantric. So I got some cool people here
Oh
that
wow.
that are showing some love. So Chris from Tantric says, although I have yet to meet Taylor in person, I've recently connected with him on the socials. Recently saw the moves he's been making from the new Gibson Victory that rolled through his front door to his energy lighting up the stage at Louder Than Life. All I can say is it's truly inspiring, especially when you see how much he cares about the performance just as much as the playing. Hope to run into you one of these days. So that's Chris from Tantric.
Chris, thanks so much, bro. That's awesome. I didn't expect to hear something like that, man. It's awesome to know that guys like that are seeing me and paying attention. And I can't wait to have a hangout with you, man. Hopefully we'll play some shows together. And it's just wild, like to start thinking that these people are becoming my peers, and I'm very grateful to be where I'm at, and that just means the world, man. So thank you so much, Chris. Hope to see you soon, dude.
So we have what I believe to be the final fan question sent in. This is from Doug McTaggart, aka Flint Santa
Yeah,
810 on Instagram.
Blitz.
So
Oh
I
God.
had to mention the Instagram handle because it's so good. Flint Santa 810. Go give him a follow. He deserves it for having a tag
Oh,
like that.
dude.
So Doug asks, if you could take one fan on the road, would it be me?
Hell yeah, dude. Doug is the coolest motherfucker. He's a legend, dude. The machine shop is world famous. It's world known. They've created a lore. Like I said, it was like, and if you've never been, you need to go. It's like walking into a storybook, into a fantasy world. And um, he is one of those staple characters of that venue. That guy goes to shows all the time. He's the sweetest dude you'll ever meet. And he's happy, man. He's one of those people that anytime I'm on stage there and I get to see him from the stage, like I'm like, oh, it's time to go harder. It's time to go even heavier. Like he gives me life. He gives everyone around him life, man. He is one of the sweetest people you will ever run into. So yes, I would absolutely take Flint Santa on the road because it would be a party every day.
So one thing I definitely didn't want to skip over in this interview was the novelty project. Can you share with our listeners what the novelty project is?
Yeah, so it's something that I really hope to get back heavily involved in next year. But basically, what I've been doing is since I've got a relationship with Gibson Guitars and I'm an artist with them, I get discounts, on guitars. And because I don't have exactly enough money to buy like Gibson Les Paul standards right now, even with my discount, but I basically have been buying higher end Epiphones, which, as you know, Epiphone is the sister company to Gibson. And basically I've been buying like an Epiphone Les Paul standard, which is normally like $950 retail on the street or at your, Guitar Center, Sweetwater, your mom and pop shop that carries that brand. And I can get those for relatively cheap, but basically what I've been doing is I'll buy these guitars, and I was working with an artist in New Orleans who makes voodoo dolls. And basically, I was selling each voodoo doll for about, 30 to 40 bucks. And we would sell like 30 or 40 of them at our shows. And we were basically raffling off guitars. And what we would do with the proceeds was we would send them to Write Love on Her Arms, which is a mental health advocacy group that is heavily involved in music. They're there for suicide prevention and awareness, mental health awareness, and I just really believe in their mission. And so my idea was to have the voodoo dolls the novelty, and the band would write positive messages on the back of the voodoo doll, number them, sign them. So even if you donate and you don't win the guitar, you still get to bring home a cool little novelty item from us that has messages of hope, like you matter, you're not a burden, you belong here, you are loved. And at the same time, we get real instruments in people's hands, not some little shitty $120 Squire Bullet or the beginner guitars. Like, if you win a guitar for me, I want you to be able to, if you want to learn, or if you're already a musician, you can create with it, you can record with it, you can play live with it. And so the idea was to help raise money for mental health awareness and music while getting good actual instruments in people's hands.
That's amazing. I'm glad we were able to touch on that, and we'll keep spreading the word about that good cause. I have two final questions. Can you handle two final questions?
Hey man, I can handle anything. Let's go.
That's the attitude. So, when you look back on your life and career, what are you most proud of, and what are you most grateful for?
Um, I honestly, I would say being endorsed with Gibson, getting that endorsement, my first real American professional guitar, and like, and still, it was a feat in its own because my mom was a single mom at the time, and the guitar was like 8.99, 7.99, 8.99, but for a single mom at Christmas time, holy shit. But she worked her ass off to buy that Gibson Voodoo SG that I still have and play to this day. So I have roots, like firmly planted roots with Gibson. And you know to get to be brought on as an artist and recognized with that company is something that I'll carry with me forever. And then when they sent me that victory, like, I mean, I broke down. Like Gibson sent me a guitar to be seen with. Like, I'm so grateful that I have a rep that believes in me, and a company like Gibson that recognizes me and sees me as a musician and says, "Yeah, we back this guy. He needs to be seen with our guitars." And that's my life is guitar. And Gibson is, I would argue, one of the two most famous guitar companies ever in existence. The other is Fender, because even if you don't know about guitars, you know what a Gibson Les Paul is, you know what a Fender Stratocaster is. That is a universal truth. And for one of those two companies to see me and support me as an artist and continue to help me build my brand and my music and be there on my journey and support me, it's the coolest thing in the world. Um, and I would say the other thing that I'm most grateful for is Macy. The fact that I get to take her on tour with me, and she truly, truly believes in me, supports me. She wants to see me go the farthest that I can go. I feel 10 feet tall being with her. And when I look over and I see her on stage, smiling at me, I'm like, all right, I gotta I gotta go even harder now because I'm capable. I can do whatever I want. And the fact that I have her by my side means everything in the entire world to me. I've never been so in love with anyone in my entire life. I've never been so happy. I've never been so confident. And it's because I have her by my side and I have her love. And I know that I'm going to accomplish everything that I could have ever dreamed of with her next to me. So those are my two things.
A guitar endorsement and a great partner. I mean, what more can a guy ask for, right?
Nothing. Nothing.
Exactly. Yeah. Final question. If you could sit down next to your 10-year-old self and you could whisper words of advice into cute little Taylor's ear, so taking all the experience you've had since then up to the age you are now, so all the lessons and the experiences and the challenges and the personal growth, what words of advice do you whisper to little Taylor there to help guide him through this human experience?
Don't let them get to you. Don't let it affect you the way that you have. Because again, man, I was made fun of. I was called freak, loser, one-eyed Jack, one-eyed Willie, three eyes when I wore glasses, one eye. I got made fun of pretty badly. I developed body dysmorphia from all of that. I never felt good enough. And even when obviously when I was bigger, it was even more intense. When I weighed more, but I would tell me to just keep trucking, dude, because you're gonna come out so far ahead, and you're not even gonna believe where you're gonna land up. You don't even know what's ahead of you. So don't let them get to you. That's what I would tell myself.
So, as we wrap up, I want to take a moment to acknowledge you for your lifelong pursuit of mastery as a guitarist, as a singer, as a songwriter. I want to commend you for taking a chance moving from Mississippi to Detroit. You had a vision for the future and you had enough courage to venture out on an adventure, and everything worked out for the better, which is what happens to people that take that step. I want to thank you for providing quotes for the Dave and Mike episodes. You made them feel loved and appreciated, and it helped elevate those interviews to the next level. I want to thank you for the Riding with Killers music that you created. I've been jamming out to it. It's awesome. I've been adding individual songs to my playlist of best heavy songs. So I'm loving the music. I want to thank you for keeping the Taproot band a well-oiled machine and keeping them moving forward into the future. Maybe they don't find the right guitarist and they're not playing as much or they're not recording or whatever. So thank you for keeping a band that I love moving forward into the future. And I'm excited to hear what you can do with them in the recorded space moving forward. I don't know if there's plans for that. I'm
I
just
hope so.
putting it out into the ether. I'm manifesting in advance. And then last but not least, I want to thank you for this interview, for sitting down with me for the last uh just under 2.5 hours, which is all good with me, man. I could talk music forever. So thank you for sitting down with me. I had so many questions. You've answered all of them. I'm going to sleep well tonight. I don't have the questions lingering in my head anymore. So yeah, Taylor, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Joel, thank you, brother. I mean, dude, it was a great conversation, man. I love that we blew past your original time frame. That means that we had a good talk, we have a great connection, and that's what it's about, man. And I'm happy to be helping Taproot continue on. It's such an honor. It's a dream, and the fact that my art is starting to get recognized is amazing. I can't wait to see what the future holds, and I'm just happy to be here, man. I really am. I'm very grateful, and hopefully we'll get to meet up in the future in person and go see a show. And I'll come to your side. I haven't really hung out in Canada that much, so I'll have to come out your way.
We'll have to change that. I'll take you up on that offer. So to the Taylor Roberts fans, the Taproot fans, the Riding with Killers fans, the Joel Martin Mastery Podcast fans, thanks for sticking with us for the last 2.5 hours, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Take care.
If you've enjoyed today's episode, please take a moment to subscribe, like, comment, and share. Who would you like me to feature next for a 2-hour deep dive interview? You can let me know in the comments. You can also send me an email at joelmartinmastery@gmail.com, or you can reach out to me on all social media platforms at Joel Martin Mastery. So I am done. I am complete. I approve this message, and I'll see you on the next episode.